Hey everyone, it's Christopher, and this is your weekly CC video for the week. So this week we're going to have somewhat of a change of pace and talk about something that I'm particularly excited about, which is our summer field strategy. But before we dive into that, I do want to say that part of our strategy is a continuing process where after our forums, we came together and generated a ton of ideas about how we should reform our democracy given the stranglehold many of our corporations have over it. And we're nearing the end of that process. We're nearing the end. And because of people like you and many of the people that came to our forums, we're very soon going to distill those ideas, all those ideas that we generated, into a reform agenda that we can take out into our communities and campaign around to build the base of support that we need to win on this effort. So what we're going to do is talk about what we're going to do this summer, which is going to be a lot of fun and a ton of work around that reform agenda. And I'm going to basically discuss it in 3 distinct phases. Okay, so let's get started. So I think the first phase we could call Build for the Agenda. In June, we're going to finalize our reform agenda setting process together and continue to highlight the problem of corporate abuse over our democracy by doing our either Stand for Democracy actions, which many of you are doing, or our BP focus actions that we're doing by the 10th of June. And some of you are doing both. Then what we're going to do is around mid-June, as many of you know, you have our council planning documents which help both plan the events and the organizing. Around mid-June, you're going to want to pull together, in essence, a meeting of the core team, so the council coordinator, yourself, and the most dedicated core members you have to plan that document, okay, to fill it out so you can prepare yourselves for a great summer ahead. Then, near that time, many of the regional or the organizers that you work with are going to be having a series of strategy trainings. So coming up with a strategy and a local campaign to help pressure your representatives to sign on to our reform agenda. And that training around mid-June is going to end up, every council should do a strategy meeting, a council strategy meeting at the end of June, between June 22nd and June 27th. So just pick a date between those 2 days, where we're really going to come together, all of the core, all of the councils, all the folks that have been interested in this campaign at this point, to plan a month of a lot of activity, which is going to be in July. So the key phrase there is build for the agenda, and this will be a perfect opportunity to build your councils. Okay, so phase 2, the agenda and your community. Our agenda is going to distill all of our values, all of our deepest held beliefs, and our key demands to reform our democracy. And with that agenda, July is going to be a month of campaigning in our communities. So tabling with that agenda, canvassing with the agenda, house meetings with that agenda, essentially building a huge base of support, the biggest we can do in July, to build the support that we'll need to launch a series of activities that we're going to do in August. So July is essentially your agenda, our agenda, and your community. And then the third phase, and to me, the most exciting phase of the entire strategy, is phase 3, which is our agenda and your member of Congress. So for the first week of August, which is incidentally when all of our members of Congress are going to be home, all move-on councils should stage a massive day of action, which is going to be the biggest, baddest, boldest actions that we have ever done in our history. They should be massive. And the goal there is to ensure that we raise this issue for all of our fellow citizens, and particularly that we ask our member of Congress to sign on to our reform agenda. Now, we've got some really great members of Congress who are incredibly liberal, like Grayson and John Lewis and others, who will sign on to our reform agenda. We want to make sure that they do, but we also have some members of Congress who we all know probably won't be particularly happy with our reform agenda. So, the week after that big week, so for the rest of August, week after week, we should do a series of activities to pressure those who refuse to stand for democracy. Those could be bird-dogging opportunities, those could be district meetings with your representatives. Just constantly pressure them to make sure before they go back to Washington that we know and their community knows that they're going to stand with democracy. So there you have it, folks, our summer of democracy. In June, we build for our agenda. In July, our agenda in your community. And in August, our agenda and your member of Congress. I think it's going to be really exciting. But I also want to say that it's going to be really challenging. This is going to challenge us unlike perhaps most of the campaigns we've ever done. But our movement for reform is at the heart of why we are progressives, why we follow Move On. And in the history of movements, it always started off tough. Sometimes they didn't even know what the goals were, but they got through it together. And with this effort, we're going to get to it together as well. All of us. So, this has been Christopher Casey, one of the national field organizers with MoveOn.org. It is always a pleasure to address all of you, because I know how hard each of you work to create the change we want to see in the world. This is going to be an exciting summer, and I can't wait to do it with all of you. Have a great week.